Was it painful writing those particular chapters?
What I suffered brought me back to the time of my really early childhood.
She was once the face of elegance, the very symbol of timeless beauty. And yet, behind the glamorous legacy lies a reality few expected.
It's not important the appearance. It's important maybe in films, but it's what you have to give.
Sophia Loren, now 90, has lived a life richer and more complex than any film she starred in. From underground tunnels in wartime Italy to standing ovations on the world's biggest stages, hers is a story of survival and spectacle. But what happens after the lights dim? What if behind the golden image, there's a quieter, lonelier truth? One decision from her past may hold the answer. And what she said recently might surprise you. Childhood marked by poverty and war. Long before the world knew her name, Sophia Loren was a silent witness to war, hunger, and abandonment. Born in 1934 in a clinic for unwed mothers, her entrance into the world was already marked by rejection. Her father, Riccardo Ciccolone, offered no name, no warmth, and no support. As bombs fell over Naples and the family scraped together meals from whatever could be found, Sophia absorbed a life lesson not from books or classrooms, but from the streets. Survival requires more than strength. It demands silence, resilience, and waiting for moments of light in overwhelming darkness. In Pozzuoli, a battered town clinging to the edge of post-war Italy, Loren's earliest memories were not of toys or play, but of cold, hunger, and constant fear. Her family, like many others, was displaced by war and driven to extremes. They lived in a tunnel for nearly 8 months, surrounded by rubble and rats, where the sound of bombs overhead became a lullaby of dread. Food was a fantasy. Her mother once resorted to feeding her lentils mashed in radiator water, a desperate act that nearly cost Sophia her life. This wasn't childhood, it was survival in its rawest form. War, however, was not limited to the streets. It moved also into little Sophia's mind. Born out of wedlock in a culture strictly bound to tradition, she was rejected from her very beginning. Her appearance, skinny, long-nosed, and wide-eyed, invited many nasty nicknames, such as Toothpick. The schoolyards were between these and a source of rejection. What did she lack in friendship? An emotional depth. What she really drew upon was early suffering, which became a reservoir of sorts in some of her most haunting performances. She was deeply involved in a role, much to her credit, where she played the part of a mother dealing with the repercussions of wartime trauma in Two Women, 1960. This earned Sophia her Academy Award and international fame. Even today, Sophia remembers those years not just with sorrow, but with clarity. In a 2024 interview with Yahoo Entertainment, she reflected on how the fear and scarcity of her early life never truly left her. The wounds of war, both literal and invisible, shaped the woman she became. Her childhood didn't just build character, it left behind a blueprint for endurance. And while the story of who helped her through it all comes next, Sophia's own survival instincts were already being sharpened, quietly, painfully, and without applause. Behind Sophia's strength was someone whose quiet sacrifices shaped everything that came next. The support of Romilda Villani. Romilda Villani, Sophia Loren's mother, was the driving force behind her daughter's survival and eventual stardom. A former piano teacher and beauty queen herself, once winning a Greta Garbo look-alike contest, Romilda had long harbored dreams of becoming an actress. However, her ambitions were derailed by societal constraints and an unplanned pregnancy. Despite being abandoned by Riccardo Ciccolone, Sophia's father, Romilda made the courageous decision to raise her daughter alone in a deeply conservative and unforgiving Italy. Her refusal to abort Sophia, even under pressure, demonstrated the kind of strength and determination that would later define both their lives. Living in wartime poverty in Pozzuoli, Romilda faced nearly impossible odds. Her health deteriorated due to malnutrition and stress, and she struggled to provide even the most basic necessities. When Sophia became gravely ill from a makeshift meal of lentils and tomatoes, Romilda rushed her to the same clinic where she had been born. Doctors warned that Sophia needed breast milk to survive, but Romilda, too weak to provide it, had to turn to a wet nurse named Zarella. Zarella agreed to help, but only in exchange for meat, an unattainable luxury at the time. Romilda and her family gave up their last scraps of food to save Sophia, a decision that marked one of many painful sacrifices made out of love. Notwithstanding the depths of her own sufferings in wartime Italy, Romilda never ceased believing in her daughter's future. As Sophia matured toward adolescence and the first signs of beauty began to show themselves, Romilda was reminded of a flicker of beauty long extinguished from her own life. She started placing Sophia in beauty contests, persuaded that glory and success were possibilities that Sophia might attain, while she herself had been denied. It turned out that this very belief brought Sophia into the eyes of Carlo Ponti, the man who would become the film producer to change her life forever. These ceaseless efforts of Romilda were the stepping stones into Sophia's career. They were maternal ambitions born out of survival and hope, and a belief in something greater. Romilda's influences lasted far beyond these early years of Sophia. When Sophia entered her maturity and started to find her way through the minefield of cinema and fame, her mother was always around to be her anchor and support. In interviews all the way up to a 2024 reminiscence referenced by Yahoo Entertainment, Sophia professes with awe about Romilda's sacrifices and her significance. Far from staying in the shadows of her daughter, Romilda Villani paved the very timing that has turned Sophia Loren into an icon. Her relentless support was not simply motherly love. It was a force that carried Sophia up from the depths of poverty, ridicule, and heartbreak, to be celebrated across the globe and cherished in memory. Transformation from toothpick to beauty queen. As a child, Sophia Loren was far from the image of a future beauty icon. Teased relentlessly for her gangly frame, sharp features, and the stigma of being born out of wedlock, she was given the cruel nickname Toothpick by her classmates. Her prominent nose, large eyes, and thin body did not conform to the narrow beauty standards of post-war Italy. In a time and culture where conventional appearance meant everything, Sophia often felt like an outsider, awkward, excluded, and self-conscious. However, beneath the ridicule, a quiet transformation was underway, one that even her harshest critics would one day have to recognize. Sophia's mother, Romilda Villani, saw what others could not: the potential for greatness. Believing in her daughter's natural elegance and presence, Romilda entered her into local beauty pageants during her teenage years. It was a bold and strategic move, especially at a time when social class and reputation heavily influenced public life. At just 15 years old, Sophia participated in the Miss Italia competition in 1950 under the name Sophia Lazzaro. Though she didn't win the crown, her appearance caught the attention of film industry insiders who were captivated not only by her beauty, but also by her poise and charisma, qualities that hinted at far more than surface appeal. The most crucial twist occurred in 1951, when, at the age of 17, Sophia was at yet another competition that brought her into notice of Carlo Ponti, an eminent Italian producer. Ponti, more than 20 years older than Sophia and immediately identifying star potential in her, would later develop a controversial and lasting romantic involvement with the young actress. Starting as a professional mentor-mentee, Ponti believed the young actress would become a dominant power in cinema. He started grooming her professionally, organizing acting classes for her, and matching her talent against roles in the Italian movie Odyssey. Under his guidance, she also changed her name from Sophia Lazzaro to Sophia Loren, a name that would become a legend. Despite the pressures to undergo cosmetic surgeries to make her features photogenic, Sophia refused to change her look. Thus, this defiance became a very strong pillar in her identity, that of an actress and a woman. This natural look, along with undeniable screen presence, soon defined beauty not only in Italy, but across the globe. As echoed in an interview with Yahoo Entertainment in 2024, Loren did not shape herself up for the Hollywood mold. Instead, she transformed herself from being a beauty queen to a woman of substance with quite an authentic self-confidence. Relationship with Carlo Ponti. Carlo Ponti was more than just a film producer to Sophia Loren. He was a pivotal force who helped shape her life, both professionally and personally. When they met in the early 1950s, Sophia was still a teenager just beginning her journey in film, while Ponti was an established figure in Italian cinema, 22 years her senior and still legally married. Despite the age gap and the controversy surrounding his marital status, a deep connection formed between them. Ponti recognized Loren's unique blend of vulnerability and strength, and he took an active role in cultivating her career, helping her land acting roles, refine her image, and build confidence in an industry often unkind to newcomers. Their romantic relationship, however, was met with immediate scrutiny. Ponti's inability to divorce under strict Italian Catholic law meant their bond was seen as scandalous. In an effort to legitimize their union, the couple married by proxy in Mexico in 1957, a controversial move that only added fuel to the public and religious backlash. Ponti was later accused of bigamy, and the Vatican's disapproval forced them to live in legal and emotional exile for years. During this time, the couple moved between countries, often evading both public pressure and legal constraints in Italy. Loren later admitted how difficult it was to balance her growing fame with a love that, for many, seemed forbidden. They truly loved each other, come rain or shine. In 1966, Loren and Ponti were gifted with French citizenship, with which the couple could marry in the City of Lights. The marriage made them legitimate, a gift they had been denied for a long time. Also, this change marked the point where they would no longer have to play the vengeful game of the ancestors as husband and wife, open and free from any legal pursuit. Their marriage would continue for over 4 decades, a rarity in an industry often marked by fleeting relationships. Ponti continued to produce many of Loren's films, and their creative partnership was as strong as their personal bond. Anchor was often a word used by Sophia to define Carlo, the anchor in her life who kept her steady through storms past and present, through stardom's whirlwinds. He led her education, guided her scholarly development, and formulated artistic choices that defined her career. Loren was quoted as saying in a 2024 interview with Yahoo Entertainment that Ponti had not only changed her life, but had also given her one. Although complicated and sometimes controversial, their relationship was nevertheless built on a deep respect for one another, loyalty, and a steadfast belief in one another. It serves as a testament to love overcoming legal obstacles, societal judgment, and decades under the public eye, navigating Hollywood and personal identity. When Sophia Loren began her rise to international stardom in the 1950s, Hollywood was a world dominated by rigid beauty ideals, Small noses, narrow cheekbones, and Eurocentric features shaped the standard of glamour. As an Italian actress with striking and unconventional beauty, Sophia faced enormous pressure to alter her appearance. During an early screen test, a cameraman bluntly criticized her looks, calling her impossible to photograph, claiming her mouth was too big, her nose too long, and her face too wide. Even Carlo Ponti, her mentor and romantic partner, once suggested she consider plastic surgery to soften her distinct features. The advice could have crushed her self-esteem, but Sophia's response was iconic and defiant. "If you're suggesting I need to slice off a piece of my nose to make movies, I'll go back to Pozzuoli." That refusal to conform became a turning point, not just in her career, but in her personal philosophy. Sophia decided to embrace what made her different. Her expressive eyes, strong nose, and sensuous mouth, which eventually became her trademarks. While other actresses succumbed to surgical pressure to land roles, Sophia's unaltered beauty and refusal to bend to studio demands earned her respect from fans and filmmakers alike. She became a new standard of beauty, proving that success didn't require transformation, but authenticity. Directors and audiences began to appreciate the emotional depth and raw presence she brought to the screen, which went far beyond superficial appeal. Back in the day, Hollywood didn't know how to sell an actress from a Mediterranean country who could command the screen with a proud, having an accent. Sophia kept on exerting enough charm and talent until she began to break into the isolationist Hollywood industry. In Two Women, 1960, for which she received an Academy Award, and Marriage Italian Style, 1964, she portrayed a very rare kind of feminine strength and complexity that typical Hollywood portrayals did not embody. She broke barriers in what it meant to be a leading lady, vulnerable yet fierce, glamorous yet earthy. Instead of fitting into the American mold, Loren carried Italy with her out into the world, maintaining fidelity to her cultural roots and natural personality. In that 2024 interview with Yahoo Entertainment, Sophia reaffirmed that in her lifetime, she kept true to herself and her perspectives over anything else. At the same time, she remarked, reflecting on her plethora of decades under the spotlight, "I never really followed trends or tried to fit in. I've always tried to be myself, and that has been enough." This self-identity clicking commitment to her roots, appearance, and values is one of the most striking characteristics of her legacy. Her everlasting nature in today's world, molded by celebrities striving to reinvent themselves for relevance audaciousness, makes an exemplary contrast. Her refusal to conform made headlines, but nothing prepared her for what would follow outside the spotlight: legal battles and financial struggles. Despite her international fame and glamour, Sophia Loren's life was not without controversy. One of the most publicized episodes came in the form of a long-standing legal battle with the Italian tax authorities. The case stemmed from a 1963 tax return, which her financial advisor at the time had allegedly mishandled. Sophia, trusting her accountant's judgment, had no reason to believe there was a problem until nearly 2 decades later, when the issue resurfaced. By then, the original tax amount, already modest, had ballooned due to accumulated interest and penalties, reaching an overwhelming sum. With her advisor deceased and no chance to contest the error through him, Loren was left to face the legal repercussions on her own. In 1982, Sophia was convicted of tax evasion and sentenced to 30 days in prison, later reduced to 17 days. Despite appealing to the President of Italy for a pardon, her request was denied. Loren chose to face the sentence head-on. True to her character, she entered the Pozzuoli women's prison with grace and composure, impeccably dressed and holding her head high. "I am worried, very worried," she admitted at the time, one of the few public glimpses of vulnerability from the usually poised star. Her time in prison, though short, was emotionally taxing and humiliating, especially as it contradicted the refined image she had spent years cultivating. Nonetheless, her dignity and resilience through this ordeal gained her even greater respect. Pictures of Loren were plastered on the walls by her fellow inmates with handwritten notes that stated, "Pardon, Sophia," which is a rare sign of solidarity with the star. Sympathy with the public was widespread, and many Italians considered her punishment to be a gross miscarriage of justice, rather than a proportional statement. Loren's very imprisonment became symbolic of not guilt, but of a woman paying the price for a bureaucratic mishap she didn't knowingly commit. Her steady and dignified conduct throughout the process was all the more evidence of the strength she had carried since childhood. Years later, in a July 2024 retrospective interview for Yahoo Entertainment, Loren reflected on the experience with stoic clarity, characterizing it as yet another chapter in an otherwise problematic, difficult-to-stand-in life of struggle and survival. She asserted that she never acted against the law since her conscience was clear, and she was fully convinced of her honesty. The suffering was yet another bright line for her in one of her defining narratives. No matter how great the successes, she was not spared by life's misfortunes. Each time, however, she stood up with grace, showing again that her strength was far beyond film. Crowned with excellence. Sophia Loren's rise from poverty to the pinnacle of international cinema is one of the most compelling stories in film history. Her breakthrough came with the 1960 film Two Women, La Ciociara, directed by Vittorio De Sica. Loren's portrayal of a mother trying to protect her daughter during wartime Italy was raw, powerful, and deeply personal, drawing heavily from her own traumatic experiences during World War II. The role earned her the Academy Award for Best Actress in 1962, making her the first actress to win an Oscar for a performance in a foreign-language film. The achievement not only catapulted her into global stardom, but also signaled a major shift in Hollywood's openness to international talent. Following her Oscar win, Loren delivered a string of critically acclaimed performances that solidified her status as one of the most respected actresses of her generation. In Marriage Italian Style, 1964, again under De Sica's direction and alongside Marcello Mastroianni, she balanced humor and vulnerability in a performance that earned her a second Oscar nomination. In Sunflower, 1970, her emotional depth as a woman searching for her lost husband during World War II added to her growing legacy as an actress capable of portraying complex female characters with dignity and realism. These roles allowed Loren to transcend the beauty queen stereotype and showcase her considerable range and emotional intelligence. Working with great Italian directors, De Sica, Dino Risi, and Ettore Scola, and with such international stars as Cary Grant, Marlon Brando, and Peter Sellers, helped Loren develop a career that spanned continents and genres. Excellent in both comedic and dramatic performance, she was at home in both Italian neorealism and Hollywood extravagance. During the 60s and 70s, she was one of the highest-paid actresses in the world, admired not only for her charm on screen, but also for her discipline, professionalism, and grit. Her husband and longtime producer, Carlo Ponti, was responsible for her career path, making it possible for her to pursue roles that would show off her depth rather than just her beauty. In later years, her career received yet another round of respect, honor, and accolades, culminating in an honorary Oscar in 1991 for her lifetime contribution to cinema. Decades later, she would return to the screen in 2020 in Eduardo Ponti's The Life Ahead. Madame Rosa, a Holocaust survivor caring for the children of sex workers, gave her a role much respect and won her AARP Movies for Grown-Ups Award for Best Actress. In a Yahoo Entertainment interview in 2024, Loren expressed pride in her legacy, but maintained that she still did not think too much about awards or legacy. "I don't want to think about legacy, I want to live," were her words. Personal losses and enduring strength. Throughout her life, Sophia Loren faced immense personal losses that tested her emotional resilience. One of the most significant was the complicated relationship with her father, Riccardo Ciccolone. Though he legally acknowledged Sophia and her sister Maria, after legal pressure from their grandmother, he remained emotionally distant and absent from their lives. Loren met him only a handful of times and described their connection as cold and unfulfilling. In a moment of rare vulnerability, she once lamented that she wished she'd had a different father, one who offered love, support, and presence. His absence left a lifelong void that no amount of fame or recognition could completely fill. Far more devastating, however, was the loss of her husband, Carlo Ponti, in 2007. The two had shared over 5 decades of partnership, romantic, professional, and deeply personal. Ponti had not only shaped Sophia's career, but had also been her anchor, advisor, and emotional safe haven through the many storms of her life. His death marked the end of an era for Loren and, in many ways, left her to navigate the world alone. Despite the depth of her grief, she chose to grieve privately, maintaining the dignity and grace that had always defined her public persona. She referred to their relationship as a love that will never end, a statement that reflected both their bond and the permanence of her devotion. Sophia's tragic yet strong personal life has been as inspirational as her roles on screen. Instead of retreating from the public eye, she comes forth, remains active, and deeply engages herself in her work and family, pouring out her love into the 2 sons, Carlo Jr. and Eduardo, who directed her in the 2020 film The Life Ahead. It helped her not just to continue doing what she loved, but also to further the importance of family legacy, emotional continuity, and healing. It was a symbolic full-circle work because it was under the direction of the one son she had raised with fierce protection. In the 2024 Yahoo Entertainment interview, Loren expressed in a deeply simplistic lingo her personal philosophy of life and loss. She has understood that brooding over sorrow, or what might have been, might not erase the conflict she had with reality. Rather, she prefers the here and now plus the people precious to her. Her ability to go through life's full spectrum from grief to gratitude brings sheer brilliance during dusk, when things are particularly unfortunate. A kind of testimony of power, not as a really well-performing star, but as a woman who has been living life fully and completely in love. A triumphant return to the screen. After more than a decade away from the spotlight, Sophia Loren made a stunning return to cinema in 2020 with The Life Ahead, La Vita davanti a sé, directed by her younger son, Eduardo Ponti. At 86 years old, Loren took on the emotionally demanding role of Madame Rosa, a Holocaust survivor and former sex worker who cares for the children of marginalized women in coastal Italy. The film, based on the 1975 novel by Romain Gary, was a perfect vehicle for Loren's depth and maturity as an actress. Her portrayal of Madame Rosa was filled with compassion, strength, and vulnerability, qualities she had embodied throughout her life and career. Critics and audiences alike praised Loren's performance as a remarkable return to form. She captured the nuances of trauma, resilience, and maternal love, with authenticity and grace. The film premiered on Netflix and received international acclaim, introducing Loren to a new generation of viewers while also reminding longtime fans of her extraordinary talent. For her work in the film, she was awarded the AARP Movies for Grown-Ups Award for Best Actress and was also nominated for a David di Donatello, Italy's most prestigious film award. Her return to acting was not a nostalgic cameo. It was a masterclass in performance, demonstrating that true artistry only deepens with age. Becoming involved with her son Eduardo made the experience for Loren all the more meaningful. Much of the dynamic is built on trust and respect, and most of all, long emotional ties built through decades within the family unit. In interviews, Loren bared out what it was for her to be directed by the son who, according to her, instilled in her the confidence to give herself to the part entirely in Madame Rosa. In return, Eduardo spoke with awe about directing his mother, saying that she was, in his opinion, the loveliest and most courageous actress he had worked with. Cohesion in their artistic relationship added yet another layer of depth to the motion picture as real love and the history behind it transcended into real chemistry on screen. The life ahead came to symbolize not just a return to acting, but an honoring of the endurance, creativity, and sinews that hold a mother and son together. Its importance lay in reaffirming that Sophia Loren's place in the cinematic pages is not solely based on past resplendence, but because she still has present-day brilliance that continues to evolve. Just when the world thought she had given her final bow, Sophia proved she was far from finished. Embracing life at 90 and beyond. At nearly 90 years old, Sophia Loren continues to defy expectations, not only by aging with grace, but by embracing life with vigor and purpose. Unlike many of her peers who have long since stepped away from the spotlight, Loren remains creatively active and spiritually engaged. Her 2020 return in The Life Ahead was not a swan song, but a reaffirmation of her love for acting and storytelling. Loren has made it clear in interviews that she has no plans to retire, choosing instead to live fully and authentically. Sophia's approach to aging stands in contrast to the conventional expectations often placed on older celebrities. Rather than becoming a symbol of the past, she remains firmly grounded in the present. Loren maintains a relatively private life in Switzerland, surrounded by family, art, and the serenity she's earned after decades in the global spotlight. However, she remains open to roles that resonate with her values and emotional instincts. Her enduring presence serves as a powerful counter-narrative to Hollywood's tendency to sideline older women, reinforcing that passion, purpose, and talent do not diminish with age. What distinguishes Loren now is not merely her longevity, but the reliability of that strength. The same kind of strength that saw her through wars, personal heartbreaks, and harsh professional criticisms with grace and elegance. What continues to draw others to her is that same elegance and strength, alongside conviction and an ironclad sense of self. Her unpretentiousness and wisdom have influenced not only actors, but anyone facing the indignities of growing older with grace. From international diva to cherished matriarch of the movie industry, she is one star who has never lost her grip on the real world. Her refusal to speak of legacy is not a rejection of her past, but instead speaks to the future she intends to build. Her saga serves to reconfirm that resilience is never too late to retire, and that dreams are not stamped with an expiration date. Whether on the film set, sharing time with a family, or just enjoying life, day-by-day exercises, Loren is still living and shining as an example of aging with purpose. At 90, She embodies the great message, one which cannot solely be held hostage to accolades or critical acclaim for her performances. Hence, her unwillingness to fade quietly into retirement is also symbolic of a changing cultural attitude, especially for a woman like Loren, about how age is being interpreted in general. In a society that tends to again and again make older women invisible, Loren continues to be loud, proud, and unapologetically visible. For, as she said, "There is a fountain of youth. It is your mind, your talents, the creativity you bring to your life, and the lives of people you love." Thanks for watching. If Sophia Loren's incredible journey moved you, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more untold stories of iconic legends. And don't go just yet. Click on the next video on your screen to dive even deeper into the life of another unforgettable star. See you there?